So, bad movies are bad, but bad movies can also be good. This is I Have No Title, and I Must Podcast. We are your hosts, Tyler
and Chris.
We're not the first to ask this question of why is it that bad movies are still enjoyed, whereas like something like music or books, if they're bad, it's like we just turn it off or stop reading. And we'll probably not be the last to ask this question either. But I was rewatching some of Cinemassacre's rental reviews recently, and some of the movies they talk about are widely considered to be not good. But yet there's so much enjoyment to be had from them, and just like hearing them talk about the movies kind of makes you want to go watch them anyway.
Is that the angry video game nerd?
Yes, that is what he is most known for. But I do prefer his movie content, I think, which I'm sad they quit doing the rental reviews. I think they kind of shut that down once lockdown hit.
Well, initially I do have to say, when you say we, I have to disagree on its face, because bad music is what runs the world.
Well, yeah, I guess.
But that's the, aside from that, that's just like people without taste or like bubblegum, sensibilities, which are people who, that's by and large the majority of people, and we're talking about connoisseurs of
Well,
things.
I mean, I would
You're talking
argue,
about connoisseurs.
Yeah, I would argue even among like pop music, there's still like a beat to it, like an underlying catchy something that gets stuck in your head, and sometimes you hate yourself for it.
Yeah, so that's your guilty pleasure is what people call them. I have a friend who never says anything enlightened or insightful, but he said this one thing that has always really stayed with me, which is he doesn't see anything as a guilty pleasure. It's like, if you like it, you like it. Don't be ashamed of it. Like, if you like Toxic by Britney Spears, that's your jam.
Okay.
It's like, and I think that was used in Doctor Who, maybe. So what bad movie do you have in mind, like, first and foremost? Highlander 2, one of the worst films of all time, that's one of your favorites?
I wouldn't say that's my favorite, but I do get accused a lot of
liking bad movies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Like Howard the Duck, I love that movie. I've watched it so many times from like a childhood, like even revisiting it like years later, like still liking it. And like a lot of movies that like I didn't go see in theaters because everyone's like, oh, it's terrible. It's terrible. Then I watch them later. I'm like, what? We watching the same movie here.
Yeah. Like from when you were a kid or to an adult, like your perspective changed?
On some things, yes. But like other things, it's like, I don't know. Again, going back to the Cinemassacre stuff, one of the things they were talking about was Street Fighter, the movie.
Mm-hmm. Saw it in the theater.
Yeah, I did not, but I did have it on VHS, like one of those, they used to have them like, oh, get so many for this much movie club thing.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I got it in one of those and watched it so much. And as a kid, I'm like, oh, this movie is great. And looking back on it now, I'm like, no, this movie is terrible.
Yeah.
Same way with the Double Dragon movie. Me and my brother loved that movie. I remember my little brother laughing so hard at certain parts of that. It's a terrible movie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fun to watch. And I think that is one of the big factors here. Even if it's bad, we can say it's bad, but that doesn't mean it's not fun.
See, like, I recently rewatched E.T. I don't know why I specifically picked that. It was just something I had probably not seen it in, I want to say, like 20 years plus. I remember Allison asking me, like, did you really like this as a kid? Was it one of your movies? And I was like, I don't remember watching it as a kid. And it's not as good as I remembered even from like 20 years ago. I don't know. And I mean, here's the thing. Is it a classic? Yes, it is.
So,
and it's Spielberg.
What you're telling us is you're more of a Mac and Me guy when it comes to...
No, I'm glad you brought one of your other favorite movies up. No, I've actually never seen Mac and Me either. I couldn't really say. I'll make fun of it because it looks like stupid, but
it kind of is.
But movies go through cycles, and it is dependent upon the generation making them and the generation they're making them for. So there are some movies from like the 20s or 30s that still hold up. Like Wizard of Oz still gets shown in schools and at Thanksgiving, like every year on TV. Like you could play that round the clock like they do with A Christmas Story, and it would get views because it's got good songs, compelling characters, and it goes at a pretty good pace. Then there's probably a lot of like crime noirs back then that are super exposition heavy and are slow as Then again, you still have that now. And in the 80s, there's some really great Spielberg movies that like build on tension and pace at a slower pace, because we rewatched some Indiana Jones for Indiana Jones a year ago. I think that was last year, right?
Actually, that might have been 2 years ago.
Like, especially Last Crusade, so good. I mean, that's one of the cases where it's like the third movie is the best one, which is rare. But all three of them are good. And the same with like in an earlier decade, like with Star Wars, but which was Lucas and not Spielberg. Although Lucas did have a lot to do with Indiana Jones to a degree. With E.T., I rewatched and I was like, I'm not sure why this is the classic that it is, and not a cult classic. Like mainstream people, you mentioned E.T., you know, it's like generally remembered really
It's
well.
like E.T.'s the reason The Thing failed at the box office.
Yeah. And that was back when like tons of movies, like you look at like from 81 to probably 86 or 89, every summer had like a slew of classic films, some of which you may have forgotten about, but like all out within the same 6 weeks. It's crazy. And now that we have things like home video, Laserdisc, if you have a Laserdisc and whatever digital is, then...
Did you know they had like vinyl like movies?
Yeah.
I did not until recently.
You can still get those. I mean, you have to go to like a flea market or something.
It's like I don't know. My mind doesn't want to accept that works.
They also had them on wax cylinders. But you couldn't. It was like one of those flip books. You had to look really closely with a magnifying glass. But like, I guess it's all taste. It all comes down to taste, except for Highlander 2, which is just bad. I wish they could make a good version of it out of like, you know, like mold it into something. But I think it would come down to the 15 minutes out of that 3-hour movie that is just sword fighting. I know the movie's not 3 hours. It's probably like 90 minutes or 89 minutes, but it feels like I am strapped to a chair with like those things holding Alex DeLarge's eyes open and somebody just pouring like what is supposed to be something to wet my eyes. But it's just a saline solution. So now movies are ridiculously fast-paced. Like, almost to the point where, like, yeah, you can keep up with it. It's like those YouTubers that, like, they specifically edit themselves so that their sentences cut off their previous sentence because that's hilarious or something. It did work. When it was new, it worked, and then everybody started doing it, and thank God.
Jump cuts.
Yeah. I mean, what would that even look like? This is not even... I don't even know what's happening. You know, something like that. And it's for people with short attention spans. So, you have to get that
I have
hit.
to say, like, when people like, oh, I don't like this movie, it's slow. That's one of my pet peeves because I'm like, why is it slow? Is it badly paced? Because that's an argument to be made. If it's slow because it's badly paced, then I agree. That's bad. But if the movie just takes its time to get where it's going, that's different to me. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, like with my example with E.T. is I was just disappointed with what I'd remembered being like a lot better than it was. Not to say it's slop or terrible or anything. It's just they also went back and the version that I had, I didn't realize, was like a significantly edited version.
Oh, yeah.
That was not the original. So I don't know if that was just special effects being added, but I know that it wasn't a lot of like weird pacing. It's one of those like a snapshot into like kind of American life, except it was obviously set in California, even though I don't think it might explicitly say that. And there's some stuff that, doesn't. They're just going to like thwart the American government, get an alien home, and then not suffer any repercussions. Like each one of those people would have had a bullet to the head in the next 5 minutes. That's not a happily ever after story. The sequel to that is 20 years later, the neighbors are still talking about this urban legend that this family that lived over here all got killed by the government, because that is exactly what would have happened.
Talking about like not being as good as you remember. So essentially your perspective on the movie.
And that was from when I was an adult.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say about certain movies too. It comes down to perspective. Because again, going back to Cinemassacre, because that's what I was binging at the time, or they mentioned like the Super Mario movie. Or like if you take the fact that that's supposed to be a Mario movie,
yeah,
and take all that stuff out of it,
yeah,
the movie's fun. And there's also talking about the Doom movie. Like if you take the fact that it's supposed to be a Doom, that's pretty good. I've not seen it. So
the video game Doom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the one guy was saying if you take the fact that it's supposed to be Doom out, then it's a fun watch. I've not seen it. I can't attest to that, but I think it still goes with what I'm trying to say here is sometimes we just need to manage our expectations. If we're like, oh yes, this is based on my favorite thing and it doesn't live up to that, well, yeah, obviously, but it's never going to.
Yeah. So throw out some other examples because I also disagree on the Super Mario Brothers movie, but I haven't seen that
on bad movies or
quite a while. Yeah. And everybody's entitled to like whatever the thing is that you like.
I'll say one genre that gets a pass more than others is like horror.
Oh yeah.
Like
sometimes the worse it is, the more people have fun with it and the better it is because they're going, like you mentioned in the weapons review, the kill count. Why is that even a thing that people have made, such a big deal about? And friend of the show, Becky, will constantly talk about like listening to other podcasts that talk about their kill count and has specifically not seen, like she said to me about the movie that I mentioned, I think a few weeks back, Late Night with the Devil, and she was like, it doesn't, I think like one person died, it had a really low kill count, and I was like, yeah, and what does that have anything to do with it's not a slasher film. It's not like I Know What You Did Last Summer where it's a bunch of teenagers screaming constantly, but the people who love those films love the campiness about
that's what I was
it.
gonna say. There's some horror fans, they like live and die by the camp.
And that's another, I feel like an entirely different genre of like almost, it's not bad for the sake of bad because nobody goes into, well, some people do, I imagine, but like the people who make their films, like say John Waters makes a specific kind of film, he doesn't make it to be bad by like mainstream standards.
Avant-garde.
Yeah, he looks at it from that perspective. And you either get it or you don't.
Yeah.
The same with David Lynch and to kind of a lesser, different, extreme extent of that is Wes Anderson. A lot of people, people either love Wes Anderson or they hate him. They might have liked one of his earlier films, but the more he is Wes Anderson-y, the more people like recoil from that. Or maybe they identified with one specific movie or a couple of different things, but I don't think I don't know. Because I'm in this for the long haul. I want to see where he goes and what he does, and I'm interested in his movie-making process, or the process that he has in his mind. But a lot of people, like, nobody's going to see these films. They're not, it's a very niche audience.
Yeah, I think for the horror directors, I think a better way of saying is they're not trying to make bad movies. They're purposely making schlocky movies. Mm-hmm. Because it is definitely that.
Yeah, like sometimes it's even just like the more horrific a thing. And sometimes it's like, it's supposed to be so graphic you laugh because it's goofy.
Well, that also brings in all the exploitation movies from like the 70s, trying to cash in on a certain genre or demographic.
Yeah, and I guess that all kind of depends on who's making it. Certain martial arts movies were made by martial artists who were just, they had a loose idea for a plot and wanted to work in as much martial arts as possible. Not that they went into it wanting to make a bad movie. They wanted to do something that involved their culture. And that's not an area that I could speak to with a lot of authority, so I wouldn't know. But what it looks like is, because there's a lot of other movies from around that era that are like equally bad, that are made by white people making white movies for white people, and they're just the same kind of bad.
Oh, there's a bunch of white guy martial arts movies too that just sound terrible.
Or just even like cop movies from the 70s, or just, like a dime a dozen sort of things that are like, they're basically those same kind of like exploitation films. They're just not like black heavy or Asian heavy or whatever. And then you have the outliers, like the movies that Bruce Lee made. Like, people eat those up. They love them, and for good reason. And then there's something like an Easy Rider, or I don't even know. What else? What else is bad?
Like all of the clones of the good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
All the Star Wars wannabes.
I don't even understand, like, who's watching this? Like, I remember a friend of mine, this same guy who said the thing about like guilty pleasure stuff, and I think maybe he said that because everything he likes is bad. Because he would watch every horror movie, not just the big ones, you know, like not just all of Nicolas Cage's films, which are certifiably bad. Known bad actor Nicolas Cage making bad movies. I don't know. What are you gonna do? Come at me and be like, hey, he's a great actor. Like, show me some evidence. Okay, but whatever. It's like, I remember he would get everything that was like direct to DVD, you know, or rent stuff or just download it or whatever. And there was one that was like, something.com. I don't want to, like
Fear.com?
Probably.
I think I have that.
But I can't remember because that sounds like too almost mainstream. It seems like maybe it was something else, but it was a .com thing. And I was like, wonder what that's about. Is it basically, let me guess, just, is it like The Ring where you watch a video, but it's on a website, or you go to the website and then you die or something comes and gets you? Okay, because I don't watch a lot of horror. Like Becky told me about It Follows, and that sounded like high concept, you know, like crazy cool sort of thing. And I was trying to imagine it as she was telling me about it, and then it got this like cult following, and I think maybe even like went more mainstream from like word of mouth.
It's almost like a paranormal STD.
Yeah, which is, you know, I think was like the most obvious allegory for that. And then the cool thing is like it sparks conversations about like how you'd beat it, you know, like, and that's the sort of thing too, is like, how do you beat something supernatural? Like, well, it's supernatural, but it's supposed to have some sort of rules that it has to follow. Then that brings me back to Jason, which he should have some sort of rules, but then the filmmakers maybe weren't paying attention to something, and even in a video game, they give you the ability to teleport, because obviously he does, because he never, well, I don't want to say he never runs, but constantly shown like walking, but then he's somewhere he shouldn't have been. It's like maybe as soon as you take your eyes off of him, he starts running.
That would be hilarious to see the cut of that.
Like, oh, thank God. It's like, I just run so goofy. I don't want to see anybody to see my arms waving. It's so embarrassing. Also, why I wear a mask. It's so embarrassing because he looks all up.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody knows that under that mask.
I was going to say, I think part of it does come down to getting a group of people together and watch it instead of watching it by yourself. Because in high school, I bought one of those direct-to-DVD horror movies, Flight of the Living Dead. So imagine snakes on a plane, but zombies. And got it pretty much explicitly to sit down with the friends in high school and make fun of it. And I think the biggest actor in that was the guy that played Benny in the first Mummy movie. And he wasn't even the main guy.
Yeah, I think Becky used to do that all the time too. Like, get whatever, even like old horror movies or current ones, whatever. And they just make fun of them. Which kind of bugged me because I was like, you know, to each their own or whatever. But like, don't you want to watch good stuff? Then they'd also, because she used to be, spilling some of her secrets, whatever. She's not going to listen to this. Yeah, she used to be a fan of like New Kids on the Block when she was really young. And then sometimes they would put it on to like make fun of it or whatever. And I was like, can we not do this? Like, have fun in quotation marks when I'm not here? Because I would rather listen to, like, something that's actually good. I don't want to fill my time. Like, we only have so much time on this planet. Why do you want to consume horribleness? Or something that's just trite, you know? I think Elliott Smith said when he was at the Oscars, he met Celine Dion, and she was, like, really nice to him. And he was like, you know, he made a statement that was like, she was incredibly kind and polite to me. And I'm paraphrasing, you can find the quote, but it was basically like, you know, yes, her music is trite, and I kind of feel bad about making any kind of statement about that, because while, yes, it is, there's no bearing on the kind of person she is, and, you know, she's really nice. Like, the people who make these movies, it's for a specific thing. I'm sure it has an audience. It just ain't me. And sometimes I sit down to a movie and I'm like, up. I thought this was going to be good, and it's not. And like, as I was watching E.T., it's like my OCD won't let me stop. We did stop, and we had to, you know, it got late or something came up when we finished it in the next couple days, but I almost didn't. It was my OCD like made me finish it, because I was like, this is much slower and oddly paced than I remembered. Like, there's stuff in this that it just feels choppy, specifically with that. Unlike The Neverending Story, which we watched a few years back, And man, that still holds up like really
Still
well.
crushes your soul.
Parts of it, yes, but like the rest of it, it's like this just traditional, just straight through hero's journey tale with like Aleister Crowleyan overtones all the way through it, and
Bullies that are like psychopaths.
yeah, but you know they get theirs in the end. I assume that last bit is the luck dragon eating them. Don't see that, but like he's coming around for another pass. Like that kid has tasted blood. Like he was like his avatar killed that wolf because he had enough of it. And so yeah, it's like everybody I've ever known or loved has died today, and this world is about to black hole in on itself. Like you this, and if I ever get back to those bullies, they're getting it too. Shivved in the shank. So yeah, there's what's a recent one? I'm trying to think because like I don't go to the movies as often as I used to. When I do, I'm pretty decisive about it. I don't take a lot of risks or chances with that. There's a few movies that like I'm like that looks interesting. Like there's one. What's the one where that kid has to use her imagination for something? Is it like Imagine or something like? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it animated or
No? It's live action, and I saw like half a preview, and it looked interesting. But I was like, this looks like it could go either way too. And it wasn't the Ryan Reynolds one. I think there was a Ryan Reynolds one where there's like an imaginary friend. It's not that. I don't even think this movie's out yet.
Well, if you believe half the reviews out there, any of the Marvel movies after Endgame.
Yeah, that's another thing too that I will mention. Apparently, I heard part of it. There's been some leaked information from like these Marvel meetings that go back years. Like I think Beau DeMayo is talking about the showrunner for X-Men, who's also been a part of some other things Marvel for a while now, and some other people talking about people bringing cookies to these meetings because they will have all their really great ideas shot down. These ideas that are based on comic books, basically being told they're too comic booky by Louis Despacito and Kevin Feige, who I think initially, you know, and I think back on like even the first major phase, there's a lot of it that shies away from comic book stuff. They wanted to keep it grounded, like comic book characters in the real world. And I can see that now. I see the whole thing through a different lens because it was good. I think what was good is because they balanced it with humor.
Yeah.
And initially balanced. At some point, it kind of went overboard. But like little things, like Doctor Strange's gloves, clearly missing, except for like a scene or two here and there. And I don't know if it was Benedict Cumberbatch saying he didn't want to wear them or if it was a visual choice. That's part of his iconic look, is that like Kirby Crackle sort of thing that goes mixed in with the gloves. They did not hold back what's his name? The guy who runs DC now. James Gunn, yeah. They didn't hold him back because those are like spacefaring adventures for those. Those got real science fiction-y, and he had some real comic books like laden Easter eggs in there. But since especially post Endgame, the few chances, like I feel like Captain Marvel was a wild swing. I think it was, you know, it was okay. It was a bit, I've gone back and forth on this, but like there was like a planet where everybody sings like it's a musical all the time. Yeah. And that's dumb and goofy, but that's the sort of like wild swing you would take and say like, this is a crazy comic book thing. These people have all sorts of crazy different weird powers. They're going from planet to planet. It's a weird story. Why not have something like fun or goofy or funny or whatever? I know there's going to be some like groans in the audience, but that's no different than a lot of other things. Like there is a literal cosmic entity that's more powerful than anybody on Earth. And what's their mode of transport? A surfboard.
That is not attached to the body, as we learned.
Yes. So it's comic book. It's meant to be, you know, like you can take it as seriously as you want, but at the end of the day, it's not real life. It's meant to be a distraction. So the guys that were talking about it, and I did not catch their names because I was at work. We were closed. I was trying to get something in my head so that I could like just get through the rest of the night, get everything done and get out of there. So as I was scrolling down, I just happened to stop on this and they were talking about, you know, this sort of thing. And saying they love Marvel, but they're kind of glad, even though Fantastic Four was good, they're glad that it failed because these guys need to be taught a lesson. To like that the lesson that James Gunn is also trying to teach them from jumping ship and going to the other side and helming his own ship, which is, if you want to make a good comic book film, don't ignore the comic books.
Yeah.
Don't ignore the source material. Don't try to make it like super modern or realistic or whatever. Like, make it fun and give the audience, to a degree, what they want, and then give them something that they didn't know they wanted, which is a good advice for any movie. But I did just think of something. A really good example of like a movie and a sequel, and we've probably talked about this before on the channel, Gremlins.
Yes.
Because Gremlins 1 is so good, but Gremlins 2 is unbearably bad, but they made it with this like gleeful intent of making it a comedy. It wasn't going to be a horror. It was going to be like a horror comedy where you don't really even feel like afraid.
I feel like the first one was a horror comedy and the second one was a comedy horror.
I don't like, even then, like there were some comedy elements in the first one, but I think it was downplayed a bit. Like there's a scene where the woman talks about her dad dying from,
I mean, it's like light-hearted kind of horror, and then
a person's dad dying, the sort of thing you think is hilarious. I understand. No, I got you now. I forgot. That's my bad. I forgot who I was talking to.
I mean, it's hilarious in the way of you got to laugh because you don't know what else to do.
Right. Like, did those kids get tortured? No. Back to our conversation about weapons. But like, it was obviously the intent. They didn't go into Gremlins 2, or I mean, there's probably a documentary or a million of like mini docs about this because of how drastic the change was. And it had the same main actor, I think, like that was the guy who got Mogwai.
Oh, yeah.
In both of them. And I'd love to see, I don't know why there's never a third one. I guess the second, and they merchandised the second one in a way that they didn't at the first one. And even now, there's a lot of, it's not hard to find if you know where to look. There's a lot of merchandise for this. So, yeah, but they both have their audience, and there's some crossover with both. It's not like you could watch the second one. You could watch the second one and not watch the first one, and never having watched the first one, it's not like you'd miss anything.
Yeah.
But there's like a Batman logo that gets shown on screen. Like, this is like really campy. There's like a female gremlin that's like with lipstick and dressed like kind of slutty, and then it's like wanting this guy to maybe, make out with it or worse. And you see the guy look horrified, and then he's just like, okay, and then starts like moving toward it. It's like, what the was this movie like? What was going on?
Who's this for?
There was one horrific element with like the spider one, which looked like a giant spider mixed with a gremlin. Other than that, also I think Gizmo dressed as Rambo. Yeah, this movie was crazy. Having said that, it's fun. But like if you watch the first one, which is fairly serious, and then watch this, and it's like it's a Christmas horror movie. It is set at Christmas, and then watch the second one. That is a wild departure.
So you may have just answered my question with that, but I was going to ask, set the Marvel movies aside and stuff that people like to hate on, but really isn't that bad, and stuff that's kind of like, it's clearly well-made movie, but it's not for everybody. Set those aside. Is there a movie that is just like hot garbage, but you're like, I love this movie anyway?
Yeah, I was trying to think of that, and I would have justifications for those. It's really hard to say because like there's a lot of things that then it's like, well, but from whose perspective? Because there's a lot of people who hate Star Wars. Like, and I mean, like, you don't know. We're used to talking inside an echo chamber, or our friends, or like people who are at least like somewhat like-minded. Like, okay, yeah, but I like the original trilogy, but Attack of the Clones sucked. Or they, they're receptive even to the newer ones, but they're like, but that middle one.
Yeah, but I mean,
the Rian
are you
Johnson
a Star Wars fan if you don't hate Star Wars?
Well, that's the thing. Is like somebody will mention it to me like at work, and they're like, hate Star Wars. Solid. Like they just don't like the idea of Star Wars or at all. So, yeah, I'm trying to think. Like, because I'm just gonna sound like I'm above everybody or whatever. Like, I only like good things. Like, there's some David Lynch stuff that I'm like, I don't think it's bad, but I definitely don't think it's for a mainstream audience. That I'm like, I couldn't recommend this to anybody. Like, what was it from last year with Poor Things? Okay, with Willem Dafoe and Emma Stone, and it's like Willem Dafoe looks like his face is like kind of patchwork. It's really weird and deformed. He still looks like him though, just this like otherworldly version of him. And it's got such an odd, everyone has this odd cadence to their voice and their vocabulary. This is very almost like a steampunk world, not quite traditional steampunk, but think steampunk if you haven't seen it. And I don't want to spoil this because that wasn't my intent, but I get a sense generally of like what somebody's going to like and what they're not. I enjoyed this film for what it was because it was just such a crazy, wild ride, but it is not gonna be for everybody, okay? Now, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying people are gonna be made uncomfortable by this. Well, Allison recommended it to somebody, and I didn't know that she did that. And I would have dove in front of her to block the words from entering that other person's ears had I known that she was going to say this. That person said they watched 5 minutes of it and then had to turn it off because they hated it so bad.
Is that the one directed by Yorgos Lanthimos?
Let's see. But then countered by saying, you have to watch, have you guys seen Titanic? And I was like, I'm pretty sure that I have. If not, it was like on somewhere while I was again strapped to a chair with somebody pouring like, so, and yeah, is this 2023? Yes, yeah, that was,
yeah.
However you say that, Yorgos Lanthimos.
Yeah. His stuff's weird. It's hard to recommend.
And by the end, it's like, you clearly get that this is like a very strange reimagining of Frankenstein. That is at its core what it is. But apparently it was also based on a book where it has a much darker connotation. And the guy who's doing this is borderline like evil, or at least does not have the best intentions. In this one, it's kind of cleaned up a bit, and it's got like a fairly happy ending, which people did not like because it changed the concept of the book, which I'm like, I don't know. I liked the movie for what it was, and I felt like to a degree it had like the female empowerment message, despite people wanting, mostly men, wanting to hold her back. So I didn't see why, especially women, were not liking some of the alterations. And I did not read the book, and I don't remember what the changes were. But it is odd. It's like, yeah, you can get everything pretty much that you need to know about the movie from the trailer. And if you watch that trailer and you're like, not for me, don't watch it, because you're not gonna sit through the whole thing. Having said that, I was dying all the way through Titanic, and people have to come up with like time travel store theories about the movie just to make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, that's my take on that. If I were to say any one thing, it would probably be Poor Things, and I could easily understand how someone would not like that film. Yeah. I really can. I can see, because I'm like, this is not for everybody. And it's not, there's some films that I'm like,
I agree that it's not for everyone, but I would disagree that it's bad.
Did you watch it?
I've got halfway through it.
Okay.
I started watching.
So you couldn't even finish it.
Well, it's not because of the subject matter. It's because I started watching it
I was kidding about
by
that.
myself, and then Sarah came home, so I had to stop.
Yeah, you were right on that humping scene. You're like, oh God, where are the batteries in this damn remote?
I think I was like just past that.
Just pretend to be asleep. And I'm like, what? Oh my God, what did this auto play to? What if I didn't download this? And if I did, it was legally. Yeah, like that's the sort of thing. Like, but I could easily understand why somebody would not, or would think that it's a terrible movie because it is so avant-garde.
I've heard some people say it makes them feel icky.
I could even see that. Who was it? Lou Reed that made? Let me double check this. Okay, yeah. So, Metal Machine Music. I am 99% sure that it's like unlistenable noise. Some would say, like, and for the most part, it got 1 star, 1 star, 3 stars, a woof, C plus, C, 1 star, 1 star. Tells you everything you need to know. This is Lou Reed we're talking about here, okay? Like, the godfather of goth music. This guy, for a lot of people, it's like he did some bad stuff, but like he's also iconic. He's done some of the most amazing music ever written, and some of the worst. And it was an experiment. Obviously, it was an experiment. It's essentially noise.
Yeah, I'd say he probably did that for the same reason Andy Warhol did the soup cans.
And a lot of things.
Yeah.
So if somebody doesn't understand your message, or if you miss and you can put that back on the presenter. You can say, you did not do a good enough job of telling me what I need to know about this. And sometimes, art is in essentially a vacuum, and you can't show up to every theater and tell people, give people like an introduction to it. I guess you could include that at the beginning. But if you want a piece of art to just stand alone, sometimes it will miss its mark, which is the audience at large.
Yeah, because a lot of stuff I hear people say, and I can't even tell you one specific movie because this happens through so many. Like, I don't get this. This didn't make sense. I'm like, are you even watching the movie?
And sometimes things hinge on a small thing.
Yeah.
And like we have a real ADHD problem. Yeah. Which I think also is why movies are made the way they are now. So fast-paced. Not that they're unwatchable, but it's really obvious when you take your average movie from the 80s or 70s, God forbid you go before that, and just show it side by side with something more modern, especially from like younger audiences. Now, there's going to be some people who are, they did not edit their films. And then sometimes there's studio notes. Depends on what you're making. That there's no, even indie films get these notes. Unless you're just like true like outsider making something and then you sell it. You're just trying to sell it to a studio and keep it in your contract. Like, this does not get changed beyond this point. Just put it out the way it is, and we'll let it live or die on its own. So yeah. I don't know, what's your main, like, bad film that you like? Mac and Me, or?
My main bad one.
Because I'm seriously having a hard time, like, thinking about something that, like, is bad. Because, like, I did like the Highlander films. There's a lot of those that... I honestly, okay, yeah, I'll say the first Highlander film. I'll stand by that. I think it's a bad film that I like. It's got bad sound editing. It's got bad editing. Got bad sound design. What's that?
Some bad dialogue.
Terrible dialogue.
Oh, that ending scene where he's like, all the lightning, you can still see the wires.
Yeah. And some bad acting. So, like, everything about that, top to bottom.
So, to be fair, I think Christopher Lambert was barely speaking English at this point.
Now, I don't necessarily... Yeah, that's going to be... So that's always a hard choice to make. I think it's
the same as some of Arnold's early work. They were teaching him English on the set.
Yeah. What was that, Conan? And where it's like you can see some of it's like obviously dubbed or something.
Yeah. I think there's even a movie before Conan and stuff.
But that one's one that I would stand by and say, like, if you're a cinema buff, you should see this. But you should also know it's bad. And it's such a good idea. And they're going to remake it. And for a while there, I heard it was going to be Ryan Reynolds, and I was like, please do not.
No, got Henry Cavill, so
yeah,
we're in good hands.
At least it's not Jared Leto, which I feel like Henry Cavill will do good. Like, I think that'll be really good, but I wonder if he's too broad, like too big. Like Christopher Lambert was, and also Adrian
Paul.
Yeah, he was really, like, they were slender, and I don't know how tall they were. I imagine like pretty tall. I assume. I don't know if Christopher Lambert was all that tall. He played Tarzan also. So,
I mean, we could argue that they're kind of small for someone who's supposed to be a Highland warrior from the days of swinging around swords and shields.
See, yeah, and that's what I mostly imagine, like, Vikings to be like these larger than life, like beings. But then also, history is written by the victors. Like, why wouldn't you? Yeah, I want to see some skeletons of these people. So who knows? Like, you take what he looks like in that first scene where the cops pick him up after that first sword fight. He's like wet, looking. He's got 3-day-old stubble, probably about like what I've got in person right now. And he looks like he hasn't slept in 5 days. That's exactly what the guy, John Carter, was that his name, John Carter? Not John Carter from Mars, but wasn't that the name of the guy who came back from the future in Terminator? What's that guy's name?
Oh, no, John was the one they come back to protect.
Yes.
Because he was going to be the general that leads the...
Okay, what's the guy's name who becomes his dad through the bootstrap
Kyle
paradox?
Reese.
Okay, yes.
Spoilers for a 40-year-old movie.
So, surely they've seen one of them. There's like 7 or 10 of those Terminator movies. Some of them are in collapsed timelines.
There's more past the second one?
Yeah, and unfortunately, yes. But it's like you could swap them at any point. Like, they look like the same character. And there's probably a dozen other movies from the 80s where like they had those like generic looking white guys. You could tell somebody like, oh, it's that actor that's in that movie, and they would just believe you because from their vague memory they're like, oh yeah, you can even show them a photo, you'd Photoshop him in there. I don't know why that's important to me, but when I think about Henry Cavill, I mean, maybe, like I just think of him when he's in the Superman suit, he doesn't look that big. It's when he takes his shirt off, he looks like a mountain. It's the opposite. Like whenever Ben Affleck puts the Batman suit on, he looks like 3 people in there.
Yeah.
I don't know why they needed to like bulk that suit up so much. And then also just point for anybody, all Superman suits have muscles built into them because that's how fabric works. If you want to see definition, it doesn't work like in the comic books. You have to draw it on or have some sort of something like built into.
Like you tell me that wasn't Clooney in the Batman suit and
yes,
Schumacher?
That was rubber, most likely, or some sort of polyurethane slowly eating away at his top level of skin. So every Superman, and that, especially like the first Christopher Reeve suit, the second one they didn't do as much because he like dedicated himself to like working out and like, and initially he's just really tall but really thin. Just to say, anybody who thinks like because of what Henry Cavill looks like in real life, that he didn't have muscles built into that. If you put just straight spandex on somebody, especially darker spandex, like what the Zack Snyder was wanting to do, it stretches and it goes over the definition. It's not body paint. I don't know why people cannot understand this. So you want him to look good, you have to like build that in and make it look slightly more comic booky. Anyway, there's just certain things that I think like certain characters should convey or embody, and I've seen like stuff from The Witcher, and he's got all these like layers on from other stuff from that kind of era, like medieval type genre, and he just looks so big and imposing, and I'm like, that's just because I like Henry Cavill, and honestly, I'm still gonna harp on about this every time he comes up. Henry Cavill for Batman, that's who I would like to see as Batman, but I hope the new Highlander movie is good. I hope that it's what it always should have been. And I hope they use not only some Queen songs, do a whole Queen soundtrack, and use Princes of the Universe. Do the whole 6 minutes as the intro for the movie. In fact, don't do it over like somebody driving a car and credits back and forth. Do it during an initial sword fight. Yes. Open up on a sword fight and just Queen blasting, and make sure it's in Dolby so it like ruptures you.
It's like we've been saying, Marvel, we'll write you a movie, and I don't know who's in charge of Highlander, but we'll write one of those too if you let us.
Yeah, I think we kind of agree on the Highlander movies were such a great concept. For whatever reason, it's like modern fantasy. And I think part of what makes it so great initially is that it's vague. You don't have anything to go on, so you fill in the blanks. Just like original Star Wars, like what is the Force? What are Jedi? What is all this? It's like, it's vague. It's just, you don't get anything. You're just the POV, like that's your POV character, and I can be Luke, or if you're a dickhead, want to pretend to be Han Solo, it's to each their own.
It's like the real answer is Chewbacca.
Yeah, of course. So with Highlander, it's like it's such a great concept. They even specifically say in the intro, like, nobody knows. Who knows? knows? What are we? We're 1,000 years old and we don't even know. So, like, answering that question, always a mistake. What'd they do? Next movie, answer the question in the worst possible way, and everyone hated it. And that's not the only reason that movie's bad. The movie's bad because the movie's bad.
The movie didn't know what it wanted to be.
That's a good chunk of it, because it like went hard sci-fi, still tried to maintain some level of like fantasy element,
Dark comedy.
and yeah, there was a lot of comedy in there. From my vague memory, it's been a very long time. I've always intended to at some point, and I've gathered up a few of these films to rewatch like in order, but there's been, and every 6 months or a year I go back through and I look at like what's out there now. It's like there was a cartoon.
I vaguely remember that.
I've looked up clips, but I don't know if I ever actually saw it on. And then there was one of the movies I didn't even know existed.
There was like 3 or 4 that were kind of like tie-ins between the series and the movies.
Yeah, there was that one that had Christopher Lambert and I don't remember the name because they all had like vague, like one of them was called Endgame, and one of them, they all had subtitles at a certain point, and it had Adrian Paul. And it was like him handing off the torch from, like they did with the show, where Christopher Lambert guest starred in the first episode of the show, handing the torch to him and letting him, carry on the show. And then he came back for one of the other movies and to, like, well, I don't want to say. Because it's actually like, if you like those characters, or if they're iconic to you, or if you followed their story, it's like an emotional moment between these two guys. Probably physically doesn't make any sense if you know what I'm talking about in the context of that like weird. I probably already spoiled this on some episode like 4 or 5 years ago. How long I've been trapped here doing this purgatory show. But you know what the scene I'm talking about? Do you remember this? You gotta watch. You gotta look. You've seen the movie, right? Like at some point.
Seen some of them. I'm trying to remember which ones I've seen.
It's toward the end of this one, and yeah, I'm just gonna say,
and it's been a while since I've seen
it. Like they know that. I don't know why they didn't want to be the last two. So one of them wanted the other one to go on to beat the other guy. And I think he wanted him to have his quickening before they go into it. Now, again, I haven't seen this since probably either early 2000s, maybe even the 90s. It's possible I saw it like right when it came out and not since. And they set up this like Chekhov's gun situation with like a sword maneuver. Almost like a martial arts move, but with swords. And I don't think, like, if you talk to a swordsman, they would probably say, like, yeah, that is totally bullshit. Like, knee them in the crotch. Do anything. Like, that's not how physics works. But in the context of this F-list movie, they did this thing.
If you're already talking about a world where immortals exist, why not have weird physics?
Yeah, so it's like when people talk about fire in space, like, the Star Destroyer wouldn't have blown up like that in space because space is vacuum. So there's a little green man floating things around with his mind, but the fire in space, that's unrealistic.
Rocket fuel is also liquid oxygen, so you're burning the fuel. That's how it works in space, because it's creating its own oxygen to burn. And I don't have time to teach physics to everybody that watches the movie.
So anyway, I hope that Highlander is redeemed. I don't know that. I think it would essentially be coming to an extremely niche audience yet again. But there's a lot of people who stand by the show. But I think by and large, the show maybe went on too long, because it kind of follows this, like Monster of the Week sort of thing. They're not monsters, but it's like another immortal every week. But it was also supposed to kind of be loosely following the continuity from the movie, which is confusing because in the movie, the first one at least, he was the last one. And I think that they definitely like ignore the second movie and pretend that it does not exist, any version of it, because once you're done, you're done. So unless there's a way to make new immortals, like, does that seal the cap? Like, if they don't know where they come from though, then how can you can have a certain set of rules, but knowing how this works, you also wouldn't know how it works.
Yeah.
So that would lead to a mystery. Maybe if that's the underlying story story as a story begins to take shape or would flow into the future is like finding their origin. You better make it real good or make it
time travel and aliens weren't.
Yeah, I don't think that works in this. Or make it a sort of thing where it's unknowable, that they just continue to look for it. Like, I don't know. I hope that it's good. I think also, I just thought of another. I don't know why. I've been watching Tron. Tron's another one that's like, I don't know. Why didn't you bring this up? Because we've talked a little. We haven't talked about it, but we've talked about like the last month or so. Tron's another one that's like, it's bad. But I recently rewatched the first one, and here's a weird thing. I remember rewatching it maybe like 10 years ago or something, maybe even less than that. And I was like, this is worse than I had remembered the previous time that I watched it. And I rewatched it again recently because I was going to watch it and finally finish the cartoon, because I never watched all of it because I couldn't find it. And I've had plenty of opportunity now because it's all been compiled on Disney Plus for probably years, but I just hadn't gone into that. Now I know it's there. I'll watch the second movie, then go in, because it's set in between the first and second movies, although technically like a transquel or whatever you want to call it, because it was made after the second movie to take place before the second movie. And then just in time to see the third film, of which I'm hoping is good, but everyone agrees. Why the would Jared Leto be in this? And I heard some other things, looked into this a little bit more. Apparently, he kind of became part of the project to push it forward, because it kept there was clearly intent from the people making the movie right after the second movie. There was like a little like campaign to like push it forward, like this Flynn lives, like instead of Tron lives or whatever. And they made a few little like 5-minute shorts that were kind of meant to be documentary style or something. And then there was one with like Bruce Boxleitner and one of the other guys from the original movie who wasn't in the second movie that I'm aware of, talking about, making plans to do bigger things. And the way that it doesn't end on a cliffhanger, but it definitely ends. And the second movie ends in such a way that you're like, wow, I want to see what happens next. And they didn't. And it really looks like so much time has passed that they're gonna not focus on any of those characters and focus on, and Jared Leto, I guess, was like, okay, but what about if it's just about a new character that's me and he has a beard? And they were like, how about you? And then he was like, but the movie's not going to get made unless we do this. One thing I did not realize is that same director that did the second movie. Now, in that second movie, the original director, I believe, was a producer on it. He was like creative consultant, because this was like his brainchild. He was a guy making like little animations and selling them to like radio stations to advertise on TV or whatever, and did like wanting to build like an animation studio. And that turned into making Tron with such a process. They had to have special film from Kodak that, like Loving Vincent, was the only movie that's only ever going to be made like this, because it's so labor intensive, ridiculously so. And now you would just do a similar thing with computers and just be done with it, and that would just be, like, of course that still takes work, but the first movie is not good. It's oddly paced. It's got a lot of weird stuff in it. There's, and by weird, I mean like bad dialogue, things that don't necessarily make sense or pay off later, some things that feel like extremely out of place that are not explained. Having said this, I began developing a theory about that it may be maybe not about the Holocaust, but loosely alluding to the Holocaust. Now, I don't know. And I did also find out, because I thought, I messaged you about this, and I said, I don't know if anybody else has ever had this take or theory, because I'd watched a lot of videos about Tron, and I've always loved Tron since I was a kid. It's one of the ones that, unlike E.T., I did see a preview for. I saw a preview for it. It came out like the year I was 1 year old, so I don't remember seeing a preview for it on TV or anything, or in the theater. But when it was played on TV, they were going to play it after the news on Fox 56 or something. And it was in the middle of the week. And I said, can I stay up? And my mom said, no, are you crazy? And I was like, oh. But she recorded it for me. And I watched it as soon as I could. And it was everything I dreamed it would be, looking at all this weird stuff. And that just imprinted on my brain. And I've never really lost that, like, that emotional attachment to it. And that's a big big part of why I love Tron. Big part of why I love Highlander too, because I wasn't much older when I got to watch that. And I just loved sword fights in every way. And there's this, like, you watch it and it's like, man, this is bad, but like, it's fun in a different way, but not too dissimilar from like why people watch horror movies the way they do. Although I think some of those may be psychopaths and sociopaths projecting. But with looking at Tron through a different lens, and I would like to talk on a larger scale about Tron, because I think, like Marvel and DC, it's, I don't know. Maybe Tron Ares is going to be good. Maybe it's going to be bad. Maybe it's going to be one of those things where it's like Blade Runner. It's like really good, the new one. But then when it gets to Jared Leto, you're like, ugh, what are you doing?
It's like if we're really lucky, maybe it would be so good we forget it's Jared Leto.
Maybe that would be awesome. And then I heard something really devastating. They referred to Jeff Bridges' scenes in the movie in some interview with him as a cameo. And I was like, hey, Jeff, correct them.
Jeff Bridges is so much better actor than Jared Leto.
Like, tell him you're in the movie, like the whole time. They said it was a cameo. That can't be true, right? The second one, that's the thing too. Tron Legacy. I think it was not received very well, and it's very similar in flow to the first one. And it's got some camp in there too. Is it bad? I don't think that one's bad in the way that the first one's bad. But then I was like looking up some videos about it, seeing what people are saying, and the people who like it love it. To dedicate like an entire hour to talking about how much they love it. The soundtrack is great, the special effects are great, and apparently it did a lot to move forward the certain like de-aging special effects, though had been done prior to that. The techniques were vastly improved, and they had to do it for the whole film for the younger version of Jeff Bridges. So anyway, I have bigger thoughts on Tron. I don't want to get into all of that here, just to say that is probably the key. That and Highlander, but more so Tron is one that I think for some people would probably be more unwatchable than say Highlander, because Highlander at least is in the real world.
Yeah.
And you can, okay, they're sword fighting again. Whereas like in Tron, it's like, oh, he's throwing the laser disc or something. Like, what's this? What's going on now? We're like, I'm going to have trouble explaining this to you. We should just not watch it.
Yeah, we'll leave Tron for its own episode. I think we've said our piece on this. Wrap up here. Mm-hmm. So if you made it with us this far, thank you. Tell us, what is your favorite bad movie to watch? And if you would, give us a like and subscribe. Follow us on our social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram. We'll leave links in the description below. And until next time, see ya.